Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today I am going to be talking about my top 5 favorite reads of 2017. Now this does not necessarily mean that each of the 5 reads has been published in 2017, but just that I read each of them in 2017. If I have filmed a review or another video about a book that I talk about, I will link it above so you can go watch that for a bit more information. Otherwise, I might end up gushing about these too much and I don't want this video to, last forever. So I know I said this was my top 5 reads of 2017, but I'm already gonna kind of break that a bit by saying that my number 5 read was actually the entire Grishaverse. I listened to the audiobook of all 5 of the main books in the Grishaverse, so that is the original Grisha trilogy, as well as Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, the duology that was published after the original Grisha trilogy. The fact that I listened to all 5 of these books does say a lot about how much I liked the world that the stories took place in. If I had to choose, I'd probably say Six of Crows was my favorite. I really enjoyed the establishing of the world in the original Grisha trilogy, but the characters in the Six of Crows duology were much more my style. The world that Leigh Bardugo has created is just so fascinating. I love how it works, and I really hope that she keeps publishing books that exist in this universe, because I would love to read about different people from all different time periods in this universe, because it's just that cool. Number 4 on this list is a book that I just filmed a review for, and that is First Women, The Grace and Power of America's Modern First Ladies by Kate Anderson Brower. This is a nonfiction book about the 10 most recent First Ladies of the United States, from Jackie Kennedy to Michelle Obama, and this was a book that I was not expecting to like as much as I did. I got really sucked into the lives of these women and their relationships with each other, their husbands, who were the presidents, their balancing of their lives with their kids versus their duties as first ladies, and what their lives were like pre and post White House. I learned a lot because I have not been alive for most of these first ladies to be first ladies. If you're looking for a book that sort of jumps around US politics but's not about US politics, this is a really good one to read, and it's also cool because you get to learn about the first ladies who I feel like we only ever get to see one side of, so this gives you that really rounded perspective on them. Number 3 on my list is The Stranger in the Woods by Michael Finkel. I filmed an entire book discussion on this because this one really made me think. It's not a long book, but it delves into some interesting topics stemming from the nonfiction story of a man who decided to leave society behind and go live in the Maine woods for 27 years. He stole from surrounding camps in order to survive the Maine winters and was eventually caught, and that's why we know this story. We learn about Christopher Knight, who is the stranger in The Stranger in the Woods, though he is still a very reserved person. So the author got some things from him, but he also used what he talked about and the sort of public reaction to Christopher Knight to discuss some other interesting topics, like the idea of being a hermit and solitude, and also touches on some other stories of people living in extreme situations. It was one of those books where I'd had a certain opinion and then 20 pages later my opinion would completely change. I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about what Christopher Knight did. It's one thing to go live in the Maine woods for 27 years, but also to steal from people in order to survive? I don't know. Down to the final 2. These ones are definitely a step above the rest. Number 2 on my list is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. This book has gotten so much buzz. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list for weeks, and I think it is very well deserved. This was written in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. It is a young adult book, and it's about 16-year-old Star Carter, who is the sole witness to the shooting of one of her best friends by a police officer. This book covers some serious topics, but it also has really wonderful characters in it. Star Carter's family is amazing, and I think this book addresses some things that you really don't see that often in young adult literature. It's not a perfect book, but it is so powerful, and that's why it's number 2 on my list. And last, but certainly not least, my favorite book that I read in 2017 is The Enchanted by Renee Denfeld. Frankly, I was blown away by this book. I got completely sucked in. The original point that sort of drew me in was the fact that the characters in this book are brought together by this prison, whether they are a prisoner in the system or they are somebody who is part of the justice system as a whole. And adding in that magical realism part, it just felt right. And I love it when that works out because it's not something that I am usually drawn to. Oftentimes magical realism is like a deal breaker for me, but it worked so well in this book. I got drawn into the characters, I got drawn into the storyline as a whole, and I was reading this book on airplanes and in airports, and it was one of those reads where when I was reading, I was able to completely block everything else that was happening around me. If you are debating whether or not to read The Enchanted, do it because it is so good. And those are my top 5 reads of 2017. I think this year was definitely a bit of a ho-hum reading year for me in terms of the books that I picked up, but I am happy that I was able to find at least 2 books that really blew me away, The Enchanted and The Hate U Give. Let me know what your favorite book of 2017 was, or if you can pick a top 5, feel free to share it down below. I'd love to know what you read and really enjoyed this year. As always, all of our links are in the doobly-doo. You can check those out if you feel so inclined. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you later.